Okay, doke. I don't think we're going to be working on that script right now. I think tomorrow is going to be a big script day for me. I think we film Sunday, and then I try to get a video out by Monday. That might be a little precarious. We'll see. Might be no good, but might be the way to do it. Well, I was actually curious. How much of a change would this lighting be during stream? So now this is kind of decent. All right, so we need to knock it down a bit. Oop, I'm messing with the camera here. The question is, what kind of warmth do we want? Oh. I've got a new camera set up right now where I can actually see. Oh, look at this. We've got a light and everything now. This might actually be pretty rough, though. This might be rough on me. But I can turn down the temperature, right? Oh, yeah. Does that make it terrible? Can I go all the way? Okay, I guess that's the most I could go. It's not bad. I think that's slightly better lighting than usual. And I could see chat actually within the camera now. I could see it also where I usually see it, but now I can see it in the camera. So I gotta test that out. I've got the teleprompter now set up. It's a very jank setup right now, but it works, and I don't think I'm gonna be able to do something nicer than this. So we might have to run with it. I don't know what I want to do for this stream, so I was hoping that someone just came in here and gave me something to do. But, all right, this is actually quite bright, so I'm going to see if we could go any lower. No, I think this is like the warmest we can go and the least bright we can go, which is still decently like hard on my eyes, but I think that's fine. I don't know how much value this adds to the setup here. Like, is it nice that there's this bright light happening here? I don't know. I saw that we had seven comments here, so I'm curious what's going on. We've got shout out Jago. Okay. We've got just a straight up comment. Alex is fantastic. It's a shame to see him falling into the fallacy of personal incredulity. I don't even know how to pronounce this word. It's incredulous, but is it incredulity?
Incredulity.
That's pretty loud. What does that mean? State of being unwilling to or unable to believe something. Personal incredulity. What would that mean, though? I don't know. Since it's slightly toxic, no heart, but I'll give it a like. What do we got? Alex can easily counter this. Good presentation, but Damasio's work faces the same yet effective criticisms. Each of his ideas is similar to the neural correlates of consciousness with a stronger emphasis on the body. You find multiple feedback control systems, sensory inputs coupled with emotions followed by actions generated through internal mechanisms, what he calls homeostasis. Damasio does exactly this. He identifies such correlations and then claims that this is consciousness or that it accounts for it. That conclusion does not follow, and this is precisely why his theory is often criticized. The emotions involved in this process require no observer. Emotions are simply neural firings. There is no need to invoke consciousness here. So, just to be clear, the emotions are the things that we consider more bodily, like the heart rate and whatnot, and blood pressure, etc. The feelings are what he describes as the mapping of those of those emotions. So that's like once the state of those emotions gets to the brain via the nervous system, like we're talking about feelings here. And he would say that the feelings are that whole nervous system communication. But then there is so that doesn't bring out consciousness. It's once those emotions are mapped. It's the map on the map on the map that really makes consciousness come about. All of this concerns the easy problem of consciousness. It does not even begin to address the hard problem. Panpsychism, as you mentioned, has its own issues as well. Alex was referring to first-person experiences, phenomena that cannot be fully described or studied objectively from the outside, especially after psychedelics or altered states like meditation. Explanations of those states don't capture the first-person experience that comes. Was that it? Was that all of it? What happened? I think I closed it. Fair point. I'm going to release a follow-up vid in the next few days where I actually go deeper. And then what do I want to do? I want to do the how do you do it? Is it is it 07? Yeah. It's not looking. It's one of those. Where we actually go deeper. Nice. Okay, what was the next one? Oh, okay. So this was actually on a stream we did. Then he says, "Well, I would recommend a different outreach approach. Are you trying to collaborate with this channel or just give them content ideas? Start with the end in mind." And then I ask, "Hey, semicolon, I like the way you're thinking. I am hoping to collaborate and build a community with this channel." So I don't know if they meant this channel as in the channel I'm watching or my channel, but hoping to collaborate and build a community with this channel. I'm curious what you had in mind. Great. Not sure if my first comment made it, so redoing it here. I would recommend sending a message just asking to chat before sending a full document. Mention that you like their ideas on XYZ and wanted to see if they'd be open to discussing more. Offer to turn it into a stream on their channel or yours to make it something that you both can use to grow your channels. If it feels appropriate, you can offer to collaborate on a longer video. I wouldn't mention ChatGPT from the jump as it could reduce your credibility. Not saying don't use it, but framing around it is important. Good luck. Thank you very much. Appreciate the feedback and support. Awesome. All right, one last one. 10 hours ago. How does the evolutionary explanation account for the fact that we can predict people's decisions moment before conscious awareness of those decisions? I think it meshes really well with that, right? If feelings and conscious experience exist to motivate certain actions in a more flexible way, why do they seem not to be causally related to the actions? Wait a second, what's going on here? Excellent. Account for the fact that we can predict people's decisions moment before conscious awareness of those decisions. If feelings and conscious experience exist to motivate certain actions in a more flexible way, why do they seem not to be causally related to the actions? That's a good question. Good question. Just because consciousness has a significant effect on downstream mechanisms doesn't mean that unconscious mechanisms that that contribute to consciousness don't already affect immediate behavior and all kinds of other mechanisms in pre-conscious ways, in unconscious ways. I'm going to release a vid in the next few days where I actually go deeper, where we actually gotta keep the we up, where we actually go deeper into the mechanisms of consciousness and making the communication flow, making more clear the flow information in the brain. All right, this is a mouthful. Just because consciousness has a significant effect on downstream mechanisms doesn't mean... I shouldn't say this. Even though consciousness has a significant effect on downstream mechanisms, unconscious mechanisms certainly that contribute to consciousness some of which unconscious mechanisms can immediately affect can directly affect let's just say can affect immediate behavior and all kinds of other mechanisms in /preconscious ways. Okay, this is actually getting a little annoying up here. I might just shut that off. I might just exist in the dark over here. I was thinking of maybe shelling out for a camera that has better lighting, or not better lighting, has better capture of low light settings, just because I always have this low light setting and I don't want to make the lights real bright. Since I get up early-ish, I don't want it to be or I want it to be somewhat chill here, but we'll see.
Informing me that the Royal Swedish Academy of Science had selected me to receive the Rolf Schock Prize in Logic and Philosophy, I was taken completely by surprise. Although the prizes will not be actually awarded until tomorrow evening, this symposium is my first opportunity to express my pleasure and gratitude here in Stockholm, and I am delighted to do so. The press release that was issued after the telephone call stated that Hilary Putnam was awarded the prize for his contribution to the understanding of semantics for theoretical and natural kind terms. They put little quotes around natural kind, shutter quotes, and of the implications of this semantics for philosophy of language, theory of knowledge, philosophy of science,
Oh my
and metaphysics.
gosh. 16 days ago, what is happening? Is consciousness always a huge topic, right? Or I guess it is always a huge topic, but as a telling example, scientists cannot even understand the synchrony of 30 neurons in a lobster's stomach. Explaining our brain's 80 billion neurons is beyond our reach. Science cannot provide an explanation. This is like a similar discussion where it's like, what type of conceptualization or framework would comprehensively explain consciousness? Do we need to map out every single electron in this situation? Do we have to map out every single neuron? So at what point can we get a functional view of what we're talking about? At what level of abstraction are we allowed to talk? Which obviously, like the workspace, the global workspace theory is actually kind of high. It's like real high level. It's not too in the weeds. Granted, we do go more in the weeds than that, but yeah, you can map out each area, etc.
Today I want to describe the path that led to the work for which I am being honored, including at least one wrong idea that I had overcome on the way. My interest in linguistics goes back almost as far as my interest in philosophy. The latter goes back to my high school
So is this Putnam talking right now?
days when I and 2 or 3 friends started a small philosophy club, and I went on to major in philosophy at the University of Pennsylvania. I don't know how I learned that there was a small autonomous section in the anthropology department headed by Zelig Harris called linguistic analysis. But learned that I did, and from my second year in college, I took every course that was offered by Harris. Noam Chomsky was one of my fellow students.
Wow.
Harris was not at that time teaching his own view of semantics. In any case, what I learned was his techniques for describing the syntax of a natural language. And likewise, Chomsky's first famous publication, Syntactic Structures, was entirely devoted to syntax. As far as my own experience for a number of years went, meaning was a topic discussed by philosophers, not linguists. The only course on the topic I had as a student, in fact, was a course on Carnap's Meaning and Necessity, taught by Morton White, who, along with C. West Churchman, was my principal mentor in philosophy at Penn. I went to graduate school, of course, at UCLA, and became an analytic philosopher and philosopher of science, and mainly on my own, a mathematician as well. My very first published paper, in 1954, was titled Synonymity and the Analysis of Belief Sentences. And that title might lead you to think that I was already focusing on semantic issues, but that's not the case. The paper grew out of a conversation with Carnap about a criticism due to Benson Mates of a criterion of synonymy for sentences, not for individual words, that Carnap had proposed. I suggested that Mates' criticism might be met by counting the logical form of a sentence as one of its meaning components. And Carnap urged me to publish the proposal, which I did. And it was very kind of him, because that's my first publication in philosophy. But that was all there was to it, that one conversation and writing it up. My interest in semantics, although at the time I would not have used that word, really began in the fall of 1957, when Herbert Feigl invited me to spend my semester of leave from Princeton at his Minnesota Center for the Philosophy of Science. The following spring, Paul Ziff, who was on leave from Harvard, where he was an untenured assistant professor, delivered a seminar in Princeton on what became his books.
I didn't know you were allowed to do this. You're allowed to just talk about a Substack article like this. Like, are you allowed? So without linking, you're allowed to just say, "Hey, I've got a Substack that I post stuff on." Maybe I should come on here and I should post about both of the both of the posts once they're both out. Like, just kind of make a post that says, hey, I've got one article that's this, I've got another article that's this. If anyone's interested, go check it out.
Semantic analysis that was attended by myself and a number of my students, including Jerry Fodor and Gerald Katz. And those two things, the seminar at Feigl Center and the impact of this course, together led to a turning point in my philosophical thinking. At Feigl Center in 1957, and remember I had no leaves since I started teaching in 1952, so I was very much ready for a semester leave. At Feigl Center in 1957, I was the only even partial defender of Quinian skepticism about the analytic-synthetic distinction, and the only critic of Adolf Grünbaum's conventionalism in the philosophy of geometry. I enjoyed my discussions with all the members of the center, including Paul Feyerabend, who was the other young visitor at the center that semester. But my main activity was to write the first draft of a paper titled The Analytic and the Synthetic, which Tyler has talked about a good deal. But that was actually the complete first draft was written in 1957 in Minnesota. The conclusions of The Analytic and the Synthetic are closely connected with what was later called externalism. As I say, I needn't have written this if I'd known that Tyler Berger would explain all this, but so you have to hear it twice. In those years, the 50s and 60s of the last century, young analytic philosophers tended to be either partisans of logical positivism or partisans of Oxford ordinary language philosophy. Although my Doktorvater, Hans Reichenbach, was a logical positivist, and I have to mention he didn't like the term positivist because he was not a phenomenalist, and he associated logical positivism with phenomenalism. But since everyone calls him a positivist now, I use that term. Although he called himself a logical empiricist. Although my Doktorvater, Hans Reichenbach, was a logical positivist, I had come to have serious doubts about both movements. The ordinary language philosophers knew little and for the most part cared less about science, while the logical positivists thought the terms in scientific theories, including geometrical terms such as distance, have their meanings fixed by definitions, which they sometimes took to be operational definitions, or as they called them, coordinating definitions, and sometimes theoretical sentences such as E equals 1/2 mv squared. As Tyler mentioned, that was the of kinetic energy. Whenever a scientific revolution forced us to revise those definitions, something they knew very well had already happened more than once, it followed from their account that the reference of those terms changed. For example, in 19th century physics, the kinetic energy of an object was defined as 1/2 the product of its mass and the square of its velocity, 1/2 mv squared. But according to Einstein's special relativity, the kinetic energy, the total relativistic energy minus the famous mz squared, isn't exactly 1/2 mv squared, but that plus a correction, which is tiny when the velocity v is tiny compared to the velocity c of light. However, I argued, kinetic energy did not refer to one physical magnitude in 1899, namely 1/2 mv squared, and to a different magnitude, 1/2 mv squared plus the relativistic correction in 1905. Rather, I said, we were talking about the same magnitude in those 2 years, but we came to have a more accurate idea of the nature of that magnitude. And similarly, I argued, when physicists gave up the idea that atoms are little solar systems, the Bohr model, they didn't change the reference of the term atom. Rather, they arrived at a better idea of what atoms are. 2 points are essential here. If one wants to understand the connection with semantic externalism, first, the idea that terms must have precise and unchanging definitions, and that it is those definitions that fix their reference, has to be given up. Secondly, it is a combination of theories and experiments that tell us what our terms refer to, and not unchanging definitions. Since the results of experiments depend on the external environment, as does the fate of the theories we use those experiments to test, one way of expressing this is that the terms I discussed in the analytic and the synthetic, for example, energy and atom, have their reference fixed by the environment itself, and not simply by what is in our heads. But that's not the way I thought about it at the time, which is why 10 years had to pass before I arrived at semantic externalism. As I mentioned, the first draft of the analytic and the synthetic was written in late 1957. My first explicitly semantic externalist paper, Is Semantics Possible?, was written 10 years later. One reason for the substantial time gap is that I thought of the analytic and the synthetic as a paper only about one limited issue in semantics, namely what was right and what was wrong in Quine's famous attacks on
So this is pre A Spirit of Trust.
The analytic-synthetic distinction. The moral I drew was that while Quine was right to deny that there are any analytically definable terms in the language at all, I defended and still defend the idea that there's a point in saying that all bachelors are unmarried is an analytic statement. the notion of analytic truth could not bear the weight put on it by Russell, Frege, and the logical positivists, all of whom claimed that the truths of mathematics were analytic, and some of whom also thought that E equals 1/2 mv squared was analytic in classical physics, and that Einstein, for good reason to be sure, changed the definition. However, the idea of theorizing about semantics as such was far from my mind. After all, the linguistics I knew did not include any such field as semantics, while in analytic philosophy at the time, semantics mainly referred to the part of logic that deals with Tarski's formal analysis of the notion of truth. To explain how semantics came to be an issue for me and for some of my students, particularly for Gerald Katz and Jerry Fodor, I need to describe Paul Ziff's seminar. Ziff's theory, which we discussed for hours every day in the spring of 1958, has been largely bypassed by the development of linguistics and philosophy of language, but it contained important if eccentrically formulated insights. It was not a theory of understanding. Thus, unlike Quine's word and object, to which Ziff was clearly responding, it did not presuppose Skinnerian or any other psychological theory. Nor did Ziff try to show how semantics could be done without the notion of meaning, as Davidson tried to do in a famous publication published the same year. Rather, it was concerned with the question of what sort of evidence is a linguist trying to write a lexicon for a language, either a familiar language or one previously unknown, might draw on, and how that evidence might be organized. In this respect, Ziff's semantic analysis resembles word and object, but with a more realistic idea of what linguistic evidence looks like. The idea of trying to describe what an ideal dictionary entry for a word might look like, and I mean ideal from the point of view of lexical linguistics, not from a philosophical point of view. The idea of trying to describe what an ideal dictionary entry for a word might look like and what evidence would be relevant was to be central to the meaning of meaning, and its predecessor is semantics possible, although the conclusions I reached were quite different from Ziff's. But mainly it was the sheer ambition of Ziff's project that impressed us. In addition to Jerry Katz and Jerry Fodor, David Wiggins was also was visiting from Oxford, was also one of the students in that wonderful seminar. As Gerald Katz later said of semantic analysis, it was a pioneer work in that it is the first to propose an empirically based theory of meaning to deal systematically with the various topics that are possible part of the subject of meaning, and to attempt to fit such a theory into the larger framework of structural linguistics. Following Ziff's seminar, in the 1958-59 and 59-60, I worked mainly on a famous mathematical problem, Hilbert's 10th problem, of which I'm the one of the 4 people connected with the solution. And in 1960-61, having finally received tenure in both mathematics and philosophy at Princeton, I finally had a full year's leave, which I devoted again mainly to mathematical logic. But in 1961, I left Princeton to become professor of the philosophy of science at MIT, which is where I met Dick Boyd, and where I also had the opportunity to hire a number of philosophers and to create what was first a philosophy section of MIT's humanities department, and later an autonomous philosophy department, and still later now one half of MIT's Department of Philosophy and Linguistics. Among the philosophers MIT hired on my recommendation were the 2 Jerrys, Jerry Fodor and Gerald Katz. The question Paul Ziff had raised for us, what might a field called semantics look like? How could we lay the foundation for, to use Katz's words that I quoted a moment ago, an empirically based theory of meaning to deal systematically with the various topics that are part of the subject of meaning, and that might fit into the larger framework of structural linguistics? That question was a main topic of discussion among the 3 of us. Although in the course of time, Fodor, Katz, and I all came to propose very different answers to that question. In fact, no one of the 3 of us came up with the same answer over the course of time. At the beginning, we all agreed. And it was my later realization that what we agreed on in those years at MIT must be wrong that brought about my move to externalism. What we agreed on was that the meaning of a word could be given by semantical rules. And what we worked on was the problem of saying what such rules might look like. But while that was a full-time work, reconsidering those ideas in 1967, I recall that Locke had once claimed that gold is synonymous with precious, incorruptible
This is a rough
yellow metal soluble in aqua regia, and I reflected I had
rough
no
thing
idea
to
what
follow
aqua regia
here.
is. Possibly reading, but of not spending it.
Can we get the can we get the Ask AI
March.
here? I guess not. You're rewarding the guy. Be nice to him. Noam Chomsky himself admitted that semantics should be the province of philosophy, not of linguistics. And I agree. Wow. Province. This is like the... I see. Didn't we know meaning isn't just inside someone's head since Wittgenstein too? Meaning is use. Whoa. Well, then what is actually new here? Perhaps it's that he worked out the implications. But don't you think Wittgenstein, who emphasized usage as the way to approach meaning, was also aware of the context that produces it? I'm just thinking of all the examples involved. So for this person to say that meaning is like just use or something like that, to make this statement, I think he missed the point. I think they missed the point. At the end of the day, meaning is an ambiguous term, and you know, we could talk about it in different ways, and you can make the argument that meaning is use, but you could also make the argument that meaning is something in the head. I think that it's closer to home to point out the thing in the head, but who am I? All right, so is monism approximately true? I would take a more pragmatist approach and argue that monism is too ambiguous to capture what I would like to convey. Does it enter do a post? Oh, thank goodness. I like to say that we each have a subjective experience in the sense that it's happening in our individual conscious experience, in the sense that it's manifesting in our individual consciousness. Of an objective world not of an external absolute, what do I say? We have a subjective experience of an external world, not of an external absolute world, but one that feels objective. So I'll just point out this. I will eventually cover this topic more in depth on this Substack. And on my YouTube. Oh, I didn't even reply to this. Did I just make a reply? Interesting. Okay, so I was wondering if we could like search for... So I think I'm done with Putnam here. Unfortunately, this didn't really pan out. Also, I might just call the stream at like an hour at the hour mark if there's no activity, just because I am tired, and we're gonna have to work on this thing tomorrow. Oh no, I messed up. I have a superpower. Yeah, how do we like find? Oh, metaphysics, philosophy of mind. Come on, how do we? Is this just a? Can we not? Is this under explore? Can we not rank or do doing a sorting of any sorts? Like I'm trying to find a longer type of post. So do people just on Substack like post just straight up comments like this, or just one-liners? Yo, look at this. I translate cognitive science and AI research into practical strategies to help you learn faster, think deeper, and apply what you know. Oh, yeah. Okay. What does MSc mean? What does MSc mean? Master of Science. Postgraduate degree in science. Oh, we lost it. Nope. TEDx speaker. Let's give it a subscribe. Number 10, rising in education. Activity, the hidden fear of driving billion-dollar AI systems. Okay, we care more about the... Ooh. We want to look at this. Absolutely. This is wonderful. I'm giving that a like. This is like pretty much all we say. What you know determines what you can think about. A well-stocked long-term memory is the essential raw material for all interesting intellectual work. Ed tech is optimized for your engagement, not your competence. What is ed tech? A 50-year-old outdated educational theory is sabotaging how you learn. This could be helpful for part 2 stuff. Is this a part 1, part 2, or are these 2 different things? Or is this the post and then this is a post that... Oh, I guess you could have a post that points to another post. That's pretty cool. That's nice. For the first time in a century, average IQ scores are falling. The most interesting part, a study of 730,000 people concluded the cause isn't our DNA, it's our environment. It's something we are doing. That's one way to interpret it. I've lost it. We favored the easy dopamine hit of an instant answer over the deep work of cognition. Every time we outsource a simple question, we weaken the mental muscles that build a truly sharp mind. Depends what we do with... Like, you outsource some things. You could think about this as skills. Like, you outsource certain skills, but then you also now have to do stuff with what you get. So yeah, I have this bad habit of looking at my camera here when I respond to chat, when I should be looking at the camera. I look at my display of myself or chat, but really I should be looking up here. I should be and I could even see the chat. So problem is I can't scroll. Oh, I can scroll. Oh my gosh, that's incredible. Okay, we're back. We are in it. Why rush to automate what you haven't Oh, can I change? Is this per? This can't be per content. That's pretty lame, actually. We need to get a better software for that. All right, so I think we can bounce. Turn vague learning goals. Oh, I gotta see. Oh, can we do that right now? I wanted to build my own AI agent chatbot for my newsletter, but I had no idea where to start. Okay. Notebook LM. I was hoping that we could do this. Get the app. Oh, does it have to be on? Oh, okay, no. It's on PC as well. So I want to create a new notebook. And I want to add in... I want to add in the video, actually, that we were just working on. I think this would be fun. All right, we're in there. So we've got the source. That's all good. We've got the chat. The source material is an excerpt from a video script that explores the neuroscientific approach to consciousness. Right? So we got all that, but can we get a video overview? Oh, this is gonna be crazy. This is nuts. Can we get the mind map going? And can we get an audio overview? Can we get these all at the same time? Because that's crazy. And then we could do all kinds of things. We can do a quiz, flashcards, report, generate reports, format, create your own reports, briefing doc, overview of your source features, key, study guide, blog post. Oh, this is fun. Suggested format, research proposal, a grant proposal outlining a neuroscientific study on consciousness. How about a position paper? Explanatory narrative. Well, it's already in that. So I don't know if this is gonna be that fun. But this is like cool stuff. Like look at what we can do here. Pragmatic normative framework. It's discuss what these sources say about the pragmatic. Source describes the sources describe a pragmatic normative framework that guides the neuroscientific approach to solving the hard problem of consciousness by setting prescriptive standards for evaluating theories and evidence. This framework is built upon a crucial pragmatic argument. It is not concerned with what is true in an absolute ontological sense, but rather with identifying the most plausible, promising, useful, and communicable pursuit for understanding consciousness. This approach leverages the standards and rigor of empirical science. The nature of the normative framework. Okay. Could we get back to... Yes. Role of subjective intuition. Experience shaped by learned brain model. Cannot rely on self-evident features as intuition. So this is pretty cool. Good content or bad content? That's the real question. All right. Oh, come on. Audio overview failed. We just want to hope that the video one doesn't fail. So let's wait on that. We want to find more people. More people. Do we care enough about philosophy? Okay, how do we get through this? Aha. Self-care. Let's find stuff in there. Health and wellness. I think that might be better than self-care here. Self-indulgence is not self-care. I need to find popular. Health and wellness. Rising in health and wellness. Okay, this is good stuff. Renowned psychotherapist, best-selling author, and podcast host exploring the intricacies of modern relationships, intimacy, and desire. All right, that's not what we're looking for. I read about the way life feels. I don't know if we're looking for that. The wellness process. Niche wellness finds to help you feel better. Okay, this is too broad. One tiny healing habit. All right, let's get out of there. Can I not go? Let me check it out. Okay. Your one tiny healing habit for today. Okay, this is going to be all that. Doctor is holistic physician and author based in the Chicago area. Melatonin. So this is not what we're looking for. Soul wellness. Nah, these are more vibey. Stop choosing mundanity. Mundanity? Weekly radical glow up planner. Okay, let's get out of there. We should just look for PhDs. The best time to think. This is what we're looking for. How to work with your brain instead of against it. Absolutely. Let's give that a subscribe. Let's do a free. Your gut is the second brain. Eat your way to better mood. I see. Okay. Your brain's favorite newsletter, Mental Fitness Made Simple by a Psychiatrist. We'll check it out. We'll check it out. Skip for now. Skip for now. Maybe later. What do we just do? Oh, that was just okay. We just hit the subscribe button. We were stun locked after that. Best time to think. Is that what this was? No. The best time to think is here. Our obsession with efficiency is killing creativity. All right, that's worth doing it. Please keep your bare minimum away from me. I want someone who sets my soul on fire, not just sparks. Yeesh. I mean, there's certainly a part of that in me, but it is a little brutal. It's a little brutal to hear or say. Why some 80-year-olds have the cognitive... Okay. And how you can too. I guess so. All right. We'll start there because we... oh, man. My pointer is the only thing on my screen that's not extra red. Also, am I coming in red right now? Yeah, I am coming in really red. Pointer is the only thing on my screen that's not. Oh, that's pretty ugly. Extra red. Also, am I coming in red right now? Yeah, I am coming in really red. Pointer is the only. Oh, but this is not coming in red. That's funny. Well, I guess that makes sense. Oh, that's pretty ugly. Extra red. Also, am I? Okay. Yeah, what do we do about that? Could we just oh, why does it still look like there's a filter on right now? Maybe that's just how that works. All right, so let's do another flux. Let's see if that actually now. Yeah, I think that does. That really makes it red. Bummer. Usually we get away with not having the screen go red when we turn on flux. I'm guessing this is what it looks like normally. Okay, well, we could bear with this for a little while. 10 minutes. All right, let's go back. Oh, we have to go back through that. Come on. We wanted to find more of the, what is this, psychology? Psychology and neuroscience. Yeah, let's see. Oh, we're not going to get the, no. All right, how do I parse this stuff? How am I supposed to explore? Dashboard. Oh, this is like, oh, 2 subscribers. Hell yeah. Yeah, how are we supposed to explore on this site? What was that? Ethics. It is our responsibility to develop a healthy relationship with our technology. Okay. Why did science, yeah, why did, I guess these are just large enough. Okay, what do we have going on here? Oh, nice. All right, so let's see all right now. Oh, we don't get it? That's terrible. I'm a metabolic health enthusiast drawn to the field through my person. Okay. So that's not what we're looking for. It's not what we're looking for. Nature, nurture, Nietzsche. What is happening here? Okay. Subtle energy pioneer, inventor, founder of subtle energy sciences. It's pretty cool. All right, we've got some time left. Can we get on Instagram right now? No. All right, I should sign in at some point. All right, neuroscientist argues that science can, okay, yep. And 100 years ago, someone said we will never know what the stars are made of. Yep. About the lobster thing, the paper they linked is from 2007, and it seems pretty optimistic. And seeing that as a lack of any understanding when in reality we know a hell of a lot about it. Okay. People are picking up on that. Heidegger thinks we need to better grasp the reality of our finite... Oh boy. We got it. Heidegger thinks we need to better grasp the reality of our finitude. He recasts human existence as being towards death. So that's quite reductive to say that. He's just like recasting human existence without obviously going into what he means. But it's always like inappropriate to talk about Heidegger out of context, almost. Because no matter what we do, the void waits to wipe it clean. We are not progressing towards a grand finale. We are free falling towards erasure. When we genuinely grasp ourselves as finite temporal beings, argues Heidegger, we can release ourselves from the illusions of the anonymous they and discover what really matters to us. So all this is good stuff except for like this. I think this is like purporting that the rest of this is some like negative thing. Like all this stuff is not, Like, it doesn't have a negative connotation. Obviously, when we see it and we see wipes it clean, we're free falling towards a ratio, we're thinking, oh, that's terrible. But he's really describing just our basic phenomenological state. Not something I need to hear on the first Monday of daylight savings. Somebody said that after a certain point, a man stops thinking about living well and starts thinking about dying well. Everything that can be said has been said. Every minute we live and die, we do. Okay, so everyone's talking about actual death. So, like, already, we've missed the we talked too ambiguously enough here up here, such that many people are taking different perspectives on this that aren't in line with what Heidegger was getting across. I studied Heidegger in college, and although he basically piggybacked on concepts introduced by more prominent philosophers, what always caught me was how he immediately contradicted himself with his politics. He ends up philosophizing that only by accepting that humans are born into time with a trajectory, that we are essentially products of our environment, which should include the denseness of that environment's history, can we then live authentically by being able to reject they and live to your own authentic beliefs? But then he joins the Nazis. Oh, man. Yeah, so this is another instance where I think people are just assuming that authentic has this positive connotation when it's not it's not the fundamental message of being in time. Heidegger was a Nazi. I never thought Heidegger meant literal death. I always thought he meant that true experience is without time. What would that mean? Yeah, this is the last thing he would have meant. Like, almost. Really, if you view time as the consciousness associated with temporality, doesn't he make the strongest argument that this reduces authenticity and potential true experiences? Yeah, I'm having a hard time processing this question as well. But I'm pretty sure the answer is no, just the opposite. For Heidegger, living authentically is only possible with conscious awareness of one's mortality. I don't know if he says that either. I don't think that's correct. Maybe that's correct. That would be like a real speculative take. I think what's required to have this type of experience of being towards death requires the awareness of one's finitude in a moment-to-moment sense. Like it's like it's not even an awareness. I mean, this would be like if we were to try to think about the physiological and psychological perspective here. It's the automatic anxiety that we have towards the future of change, towards like a constantly changing existential experience. And a lot of that isn't, as we've been talking about the consciousness and all, a lot of that doesn't necessitate that we have a conscious understanding that this is what we're actually worried about, which is why people always look to death as this thing that is actually scaring us. But it's really in the moment. It's like predictive processing is a much stronger interpretation of what's happening here. Like we're always expecting, and we're always wrong about that expectation. And that's kind of what's driving positive and negative emotion in the moment. It's driving existential capital A anxiety, not like the actual experience of anxiety, but this forward nature type of forward-looking anxiety, which could be even positive. You know, it could be a positive emotion of curiosity, but it's always like a mix. It's always a mix of both. I mean, what's being described here is like probably a mix of dopamine, serotonin, epinephrine or norepinephrine. Is delineation of perishing to demise to death always meant to me that death is not death as we casually use the word in his words, but in his words, an end of possibilities for Dasein, and in particular the ownmost possibility. So I don't think it's the end of the ownmost possibility. I think it's the end of concrete possibilities, or it's like the end of it's like the end of the inauthentic possibilities, but not like in the sense that it kills out the inauthentic side of experience or of being, but whatever concrete possibilities have come from our inauthentic mode of being, that those are going to die out, and that's like incredibly, you know, this is what's existentially affective, we could say. It's existentially salient for us because we are expecting, we're forward looking here. Is death when it, my family, descendants, benefactors, etc. stop talking to me, my impact. So yeah, this wouldn't be either. Should we do a video on Heidegger? That, I feel like this is like the least common denominator video. Eventually we'll have to do a video on Heidegger. Oh, it's gonna be so tough. You know what? I wonder if the way to go about that is without actually having to read the whole thing again. Maybe I write what I want to say, what I think is right, and then I just ask it, and I give it being in time, and I say, where are there quotes that either support or contradict what I'm saying here, and then I go search. All right, let's bounce. After a devastating diagnosis in her mid-30s, the philosopher argues that much healthcare rests on lingering mind-body dualism. Phenomenology can correct this and improve patient care. People are critiquing the ideas of this article, but I think the real problem is the article isn't philosophically rigorous. For example, the author states that in perfect conditions, what are these perfect conditions? The body works in perfect harmony. Okay, yeah, we're not going to be interested in that then. For Epicurus, our friendships aren't so much based on utility as they are based on confidence in that utility. Although much of his work has been lost to history, the fragments we do have show a deep appreciation for friendship and what makes a good friendship. Contrary to Aristotle, the concept of utility is a part of true friendship for Epicurus. He believes that the origins of a friendship begin with a concern for utility. So utility is like a abstract interpretive lens to look at this. You could more close to home consider utility as your mental health, like you know what you're expecting, like you know, imagine that social encounters are TikTok, and you need or not you need a certain amount, but like when you don't have this, you're like drawn to it. Though this is a bad example because people that are more extroverted or introverted than others will have like a default tolerance that differs, a different default tolerance than each other. But yeah, like so social encounters do provide a hit to people and also a comfort and a security, like all these types of things. Like these are emotional feelings rather than, you know, cold utility. But once the friendship blossoms, the friendship is good for its own sake. The origins of a friendship begin with a concern for utility. Yeah, so I would argue that it remains at utility, but we would want to talk about utility not in a very cold way. Like, it's not, people wouldn't say that they do that, but like, it matters to me that my family is happy, right? So I get something out of that relationship. The more I give into that, I get stuff out of it because I see the products of what I've done. I see that, I see the positive outcomes for them. So it is that's utility. It makes me feel good. But yeah, the goal is to match your mind, whatever it would be. You want to try to like align your brain such that what gives you that positive mental health or the positive feelings is what makes the people with whom you have a relationship also positive. Okay, let's skip it. Agency cannot be purely quantum phenomena. I think I'm going to just skip this. This is similar to that other framework that we do want to look into, which is that quantum physics can explain the trajectory of systems, like both evolutionarily and now. Like it can explain the like homeostasis and allostasis at a fundamental level. An attempt to wrestle with Heidegger's philosophy. Has nice prose and clarity of ideas. I tried to read Being in Time, and I only made a small dent in it. It was so difficult to read. Every sentence requires time to digest and understand his language and what meaning he is trying to convey. I remember a funny moment of being completely confused when he constructed a sentence that used being in 3 different ways in succession. It was something like the being of being a being. Right. I had heard a summary from Philosophize This podcast, and is what made me intrigued by Heidegger, because I felt the same way that the ontology of a human was still ambiguous, not quite clear. Descartes suggested we are, but what are we? What am I? I'll try again to read it at some point, I'm sure. The amount of times I banged my head up against the wall while trying to understand being, capital B, being, is painfully high. It did force me to learn more about the presocratics. Oh my gosh. The pre-Socratics. Oh my gosh. That's pretty good. The pre-Socratics and how Plato and Aristotle approach the question of being. But yeah, I normally aim to publish something every 2 to 4 weeks, and this took me 2 months. Yo, what? Oh, we got a Substack. Freestyle Writing 1, an introduction. What should remain hidden? That's interesting. Anxious or anxious, your choice. So what was this? An introduction, Being in Time. A broad summary of Being in Time, which discusses the philosophical landscape at the time and the phenomenological. At the time and the phenomenological. Oh, I see. The philosophical landscape at the time, comma, and the phenomenological ontological approach taken to bring back the ancient question of being. Toward the end of the 19th century, particularly... Okay, how long is this going to be? Because I might want to read this some other day. Yeah, let's save it. I want to read it later. We got that out of the way. All right, so all of these I'm going to try to save somehow. I feel like we should just save things. because then it shows up and maybe we get reciprocal interest. There's the relationship via utility for you. Oh, what do we got here? Mental health movement, 5 ways to escape burnout. I don't know, for 5 things I would never do as a neuroscientist. That's pretty intriguing. A takeover. Okay. Let's see what we cooked up here. Seven minutes?
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling what is, without a doubt, the biggest mystery of them all, your own mind. We're going right to the very edge of what science understands about consciousness and why it feels like something to
This is all AI generated? This is
be
crazy.
you.
So let's just dive right into the heart of it. This isn't a question about what your brain does, the mechanics of processing light or sound. The real puzzle is why you have this inner, subjective feeling that goes along with all that processing. Why is there an experience of you at all? And that question, well, that's famously known as the hard problem of consciousness. In this explainer, we're going to explore 2 really pragmatic, scientific paths that researchers are actually taking to try and crack this thing once and for all. To put it another way, neuroscience is fantastic at explaining the brain's job description, how it processes light, how it stores memories, all that stuff. But it hits a wall when it tries to explain why all that busy work is accompanied by the feeling of seeing the color red or the ache of nostalgia from a memory. That's the gap everyone's trying to cross.
So to tackle this, scientists are basically taking 2 big swings. The first path is all about building a bridge over that gap, looking for a solid mechanical explanation that connects the physical brain to the subjective feeling.
It's like there's a
The second
bridge
path,
next to a gap.
It's way more radical. It asks, hey, what if this gap isn't even real to begin with?
Now, what we're exploring
That's
today isn't some
So I tried getting rid of that type of language because then people think we're talking about an ontological type of argument, like the gap isn't real, and it's always a pragmatic argument, like what benefit do we get out of considering the gap being a thing? What benefit do we get out of considering how the gap could be dissolved? And it's not just benefits, but like how can this make sense?
quest for absolute philosophical truth. Think of it more as a reasoned bet on neuroscience. We're using the tough standards and rigor of empirical science to figure out what the most plausible explanation is based on the evidence we have right now.
This framework is super helpful for sorting out what's possible versus what's
what?
plausible. For instance, take panpsychism, the idea that consciousness is a fundamental property
we
of all
say
matter.
this?
Can science prove it's false? Not really. But is it plausible? Nah, probably not, because the activity in our brains is just a much, much better explanation for our experiences. On the other hand, what about physicalism, the idea that consciousness comes from physical brain processes? Is it certain? Nope, not yet. But is it our most plausible theory, backed by a literal mountain of evidence? You bet it is.
Okay, so
You
let's
bet
explore
it
that
is.
first path, filling the gap. How could we actually do it? Well, one of the leading candidates is a really powerful idea called Global Workspace Theory, or GWT for short. The basic idea behind GWT is pretty cool. It says consciousness isn't in any one spot in your brain. Instead, it's what happens when a piece of information, wins the lottery for your
Of course, it shows a single location in the brain as the light.
It says consciousness isn't in any one spot in your brain. Instead, it's what happens when a piece of information, wins the lottery for your attention and essentially goes viral inside your head. It gets broadcast across this huge network so that all the different parts of your brain can access it at the same time.
Let's make this real. Imagine you see a
Whoa.
chair.
First, your visual system processes its shape and color totally unconsciously. Then, your attention zooms in and amplifies that chair signal. Boom. It gets broadcast to the global workspace. Your language centers chime in and label it chair. Your memory centers pull up what chairs are for, and this brand new integrated state, I see a chair, well, that becomes your conscious thought. And it's happening over and over in a constant loop.
And get this, the entire process, from the light of that chair hitting your eyes to you becoming consciously aware of it, takes only about 300 milliseconds. I mean, think about that. In less than a third of a second, a piece of the physical world becomes part of your inner mental world. It's staggering.
Now, this isn't just a nice metaphor. You can actually test it. There's a measure called the Perturbational Complexity Index, or PCI. Scientists use a magnetic pulse to gently tap the brain. And what happens? A conscious brain rings with this incredibly complex, widespread activity, just like a resonant bell. But an unconscious brain, say one under anesthesia, it just gives off a dull, localized thud.
Okay, so that ringing in the brain, it leads us to an even deeper question. If consciousness is all that complex activity, what's its most basic building block? What's the atom of our experience, so to speak? To even begin to answer that, we have to get really clear on what brain activity is actually made of. And trust me, it's not as simple as little lights blinking on and off on a circuit board.
I think the best analogy is a symphony orchestra. You've got action potentials, those are the individual notes played by the musicians. They carry the actual information, the content of your thoughts. Then you've got the bigger brainwaves, the field potentials. They're like the conductors setting the tempo and making sure everyone plays together in rhythm. You absolutely need both, but if you take away the musicians, the music stops. And here's
There was such a loss of context there that this would be very difficult to parse if you didn't know anything about action potentials.
what's so important. The brain isn't like a digital computer, crunching ones and zeros. It's an analog system. Its state is constantly flowing, continuously moving through this infinite space of possibilities. It never, ever repeats itself exactly. It's way more like a river than a series of photographs.
This whole idea of a continuous, flowing brain brings us right to our second path. The idea that maybe we don't need to fill the gap between brain and experience at all. Maybe we can just dissolve it.
And this path asks a really provocative question, one that kind of turns everything on its head. What if the hard problem isn't some fundamental gap in reality that we need to bridge, but just a gap in our current way of thinking about it, a conceptual blind spot?
It's like, what would it mean for something to be real? Like, it could be a real problem and a conceptual one.
And here is the big twist. That powerful feeling you have right now, that sense of a deep, profound mystery when you think about consciousness, that feeling is itself a brain state. It's an interpretation generated by your brain's own, currently incomplete, model of what it is. Neuroscientist Anil Seth puts it perfectly. Think about it. Before we understood things like DNA and molecular biology, life seemed like this magical, mysterious force. But as we started solving all the smaller, easy problems of biology, the big, hard problem of life, it just sort of dissolved. And the idea here is that the exact same thing could happen with consciousness.
So where does all this leave us? I mean, what does the future of this absolutely incredible scientific quest actually look like as we keep pushing forward?
The field is just moving at a breakneck speed. It's amazing. Scientists are now building these incredible tools to literally map the geometry of our thoughts, to simulate perception, and to trace the unique signatures of different conscious states like dreaming. They're closing in on how experience works from every possible direction.
And that leaves us with one final, kind of mind-bending thought. Maybe the ultimate goal isn't to find one single magic bullet answer.
All right. I do want to try the audio overview again, because it is a lot of fun. But I don't know how long this is going to take. Yeah, that's pretty much all we had, right? Yeah, all right, I might flux up again. Let's get it. Yeah, this really makes it... I wonder if Flux, like... Or I wonder if OBS needs to be not running when Flux starts. Like, this only works, or this only happens when Flux runs afterwards. Now, is this affecting it at all? No, this seems to be the same. Oh, that's interesting, yeah. That adds a little glow to the... Because now I could see a display up there, which is pretty neat. All right, maybe we call it here, and then maybe tomorrow I'll stream. We can listen to the audio overview. Might be fun. Otherwise, I don't think there's much. Maybe a quiz could be fun. Should be pretty quick. It's crazy that they're allowing you. I guess. I mean, I do pay, but they're allowing me to generate a video like that. Like, that's insane. I do want to use. I want to use that on other things other documents. What happens if we generate a video on the full document, the Stan Richardson document? Contrast the two pragmatic paths. What's the global work? So explain the difference between the field potentials and action potentials. Yeah. Oh, this did that same thing. Right, yeah. I mean, it's just going through the content. All right, consciousness quiz. Oh, how do I get it? How do I get this full screen? There we go. According to the video script's argument, why shouldn't non-physicalist theories such as panpsychism be considered plausible despite being possible? They are contradicted by the widespread reporting of spiritual experiences across different cultures. The subjective intuitions and profound experiences used to support them are more simply explained by known neural mechanisms. They are definitively disproven by the discovery of neural correlates for subjective experiences. They fail to address the hard problem of consciousness, while physicalist theories have completely solved it. B. That is right. In the context of global workspace theory, what is the primary function of the broadcast? To send a command from a central consciousness hub to motor systems for execution? To make information from a specialized unconscious... So I wonder if can I send this to someone? Like, it would be so funny if I had someone take this just based on the video that they just watched. In the context of global workspace theory, what is the primary function of the broadcast? So, right. And then B was to make information from a specialized unconscious processor globally available to many other functional systems. To convert raw sensory data into a final unified conscious experience, like a movie frame. D, to suppress all competing unconscious signals to ensure only one thought is processed at a time. Once again, B. The script draws an analogy between an orchestra and neural activity. In this analogy, what do the action potentials represent? The individual notes that make up the music, the chaotic noise when the orchestra is out of sync, the conductor's tempo and direction, or the audience's experience of the performance? The notes. This is correct analogy. Action potentials carry the specific informational content, just as the notes form the actual music, while field potentials provide the rhythm. What is the proverbial complexity index designed to measure? A, the specific content of a person's thoughts, such as whether they are thinking about a chair or a car. B, the moral or ethical quality of a conscious state. C, the brain's capacity for global information integration, indicated by its response to a magnetic pulse. Or D, the speed at which a person can report a conscious experience measured in milliseconds. The answer? C. Oh, how does the hint work? How does the script challenge theories like analytic idealism and integrated information theory? A, by questioning their elevation of a single subjective intuition, the certainty of consciousness, to the status of a primary metaphysical axiom. B, by claiming they fail to account for the physicalist mechanisms of the brain. C, by proving that consciousness is an illusion and therefore cannot be the foundation for any theory. Or D, by arguing that they rely too heavily on complex mathematical formulas instead of subjective intuition. How does the hint work? Think about the epistemological starting point of these theories and how the script reframes the feeling of certainty. The answer is A. This is the core critique presented, that these theories take what is fundamentally a feeling of conviction and treat it as an objective, non-negotiable truth to build upon. Next, the script describes an inverse philosophical zombie as a child born with a brainstem but minimal cerebral cortex. What characterizes this state? A, they have a rich inner world and narrative self but are completely unable to produce any behavior. B, they behave exactly like a conscious person but with no internal subjective experience. C, they can feel basic pleasure and distress but have no reflective awareness or narrative self. Or D, they can perform complex cognitive tasks but report a complete absence of emotional tone. So while B, I think, is like philosophical zombie, the answer is C here. Hint. This concept contrasts with the standard philosophical zombie by positing feeling without complex thought. This matches the description perfectly. They can feel, but they don't know that they feel. They are awake but not aware. According to the homeostatic framework presented, what is the key distinction between emotions and feelings? I said this stream. A, emotions are unconscious and automatic, while feelings are conscious and deliberate. B, emotions are the brain's mapped representations of bodily changes, while feelings are the physiological responses themselves. C, emotions are the body's physiological responses, while feelings are the brain's mental representations of those responses. And then D, emotions are simple states like pleasure and pain, while feelings are complex states like jealousy or pride. Hint, think about which one occurs in the body and which one is the brain's interpretation of what's happening in the body. The answer is C. This accurately captures the distinction made by Damasio's framework, where feelings are the brain's mappings of bodily emotional states. All right, the script argues that the brain's activity is best understood as an analog system. What is the main implication of this understanding for understanding consciousness? A, consciousness processes information in discrete step-by-step logical operations like a computer. B, all conscious experiences are fundamentally identical because they share the same analog source. C, it is nearly impossible to isolate a single atom of experience because consciousness unfolds through continuous, ever-shifting patterns. Or D, the brain has a fixed number of possible states it can be in at any given time. Answer is C. This is the central conclusion drawn from the analog model. If change is continuous, there is no single discrete moment or state that is consciousness. 9 out of 10. What is the primary goal of dissolving the gap approach to the hard problem of consciousness? A, to find a single undiscovered brain region or particle that is the source of all subjective experience. B, to show that only humans are truly conscious and that animal consciousness is not a real problem. C, to prove that consciousness is a non-physical phenomenon that science can never explain. Or D, to find a new conceptualization where the relationship between mechanism and experience no longer feels mysterious or paradoxical. Hint, this approach suggests the problem is more about our understanding and framing than an objective feature of the world. The answer is D. Proponents believe that by solving many easy problems and refining our concepts, the hard problem will cease to be a problem. All right, last question. Why does the author argue that we cannot rely on the intuitive feeling of conviction as evidence for a metaphysical truth? A, because only feelings based on scientific evidence are valid and all others are products of delusion. B, because the feeling of certainty is itself a complex cognitive and affective state produced by our brain's interpretive processes. C, because true metaphysical knowledge can only be gained through spiritual experiences, not logical intuition. Or D, because feeling of conviction are always incorrect and should be ignored. Feelings of conviction. Hint, think about how neuroscience frames the experience of meaning or certainty as a physiological process. The answer would be B. This captures the central point. The feeling of something being logical or self-evident is a product of the very system we are trying to understand and is shaped by memory, language, and context. All right, how'd I do? Woo! Review quiz. Oh, nice. This is cool. All right, do we get our audio? Do we have our audio? Oh, this is it, right?
Welcome to the deep dive.
Interactive mode.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today,
Oh, hey, welcome. What's up?
Hello? Hello? Oh, I have to... Hello? Oh,
Well, hello to you too.
thanks for chiming in. Oh yeah, let's hear it.
can you please explain?
Oh, absolutely. We'd be happy to.
You are asking for an explanation of the hard problem, right?
Yeah, we were just setting up the big question for today's episode.
Oh,
We can certainly
join-
break down why it's considered such a huge
Oh, you
question.
could just jump in.
The hard
at
problem
any
of
point.
consciousness is simple to state, but extremely difficult to answer.
Exactly. We already know a lot about the brain's functions.
We know which parts handle vision, language, and memory, for example,
Those are what we call the easy problems of consciousness.
like tracking how information gets processed and reported by the brain.
But the hard problem is about this. Yep, go on.
What are the ontological takeaways of all this?
Wow, that's a fantastic question right out of the gate.
You're jumping straight to the deepest level of philosophical implication.
That's right, the ontological takeaways.
That means we're asking about the nature of being and reality itself.
And the physicalist picture of consciousness has huge implications for that.
The most profound
Oh,
takeaway is
yeah.
how we understand meaning.
Our physicalist view implies that even our experience of meaning is a product of this integrated system.
What you feel is meaningful is functionally caused by the coordination of your memory and affective systems.
It's the brain's job to provide us with an effective feeling of certainty.
So when something feels objectively true, that feeling is a complex physical process.
Introspection itself, thinking about your own mind, is an interpretive construct.
It's a process happening within the global workspace we're about to describe.
This is what makes the
They
hard problem so
haven't
tricky
described
to
it yet.
solve intuitively.
Because the mystery we confront, the feeling of the gap, is itself a product of the recursive system trying to describe itself.
The concepts we use to describe consciousness are contingent on our biology and culture.
Like the very idea of a hard problem is afforded by modern science.
So we cannot rely on self-evident features of
They're so
experience
monotone.
as metaphysical bedrock.
Because
Even if
they're-
something feels logical, that feeling is a brain state.
Our conviction must come from the scientific method.
Not from the quality of the feeling, but the rigor of the evaluation that generates the feeling.
That's why we make the reasoned bet on physicalism.
It's the most plausible and useful bet we can make right now, based on evidence.
Okay.
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
But why should we rely on the scientific method and a physical framework or the standards of empirical science when that is similarly just an experience we have in our minds?
That is the absolute essential question.
It's the critical self-reflection that this entire argument demands.
You're right to point out that our adherence to the scientific method is also a conviction.
It's not some kind of transcendent truth delivered from on high.
It's a complex, affective, and cognitive state.
You feel conviction because your brain generates that feeling.
But here's the crucial distinction, and we hinted at it earlier,
The answer lies not in the quality of the feeling, that sense of certainty.
but in the reflective evaluation that that feeling is based on.
As a culture, we've developed a powerful heuristic called the scientific method.
It's a set of deontic standards that we use to check our
Deontic.
beliefs.
When we evaluate the physicalist framework, our conviction arises from checking it against these standards.
Does it align with evidence? Is it rigorous? Is it open to revision?
The scientific picture earns our conviction because it adheres to those rules.
The strength of the physicalist view is that it is corrigible, empirical, and open to revision.
It doesn't rest on what merely feels self-evident, like the intuition of mind-body separation.
If someone wanted to prove physicalism wrong, they'd have to use the same empirical pathways.
Just
Unless
starts
they
picking
decide
up
to
my own
abandon
points.
scientific rigor altogether.
So we rely on it because it provides the best and most reliable means of prediction and understanding.
It constantly proves its utility in navigating and affecting the physical world.
It's the most plausible and useful bet because it successfully explains a mountain of existing data.
And that data consistently points towards a physical cause for our experience.
Okay, let's unpack this now and loop back to the hard problem explanation we started.
Right. If all meaning is a product of the system, what does the system actually do?
All right.
But first, what is that hard problem again? Just for
Let's call it, because I think it's trying to get back to earlier. And this was what? No, this. How long is the actual video? Or,
Today, we are tackling consciousness.
20.
And
Can we not just start halfway through? Maybe not.
Changes.
Oh.
Like the DMN relaxing.
Right.
So because of that, we can't really accept theories that start by taking the content of those feelings, the universe feels conscious, as their foundational proof for something non-physical.
That's the stance the framework takes. It doesn't say non-physicalism is impossible. Nobody can say that for sure.
Right.
we got to do this tomorrow. This stuff is so fun. I love getting these guys talking about it. All right, I'm gonna call it here. Let's get some rest, and then work our ass off tomorrow. If anyone did watch this, thank you very much. Thanks for popping in, and I hope you have a good rest of the day.